Agony pulsed through him, a wave of pure pain, a blurry, sepia-toned scene unfolded, a family. Perhaps discussing the sacrifices made for Klein's academic success at Koei University. His head throbbed, a relentless hammer against his skull. Young woman, Melissa, displayed a remarkable aptitude for machinery, prompting a thought about her future in the field. Confused and overwhelmed, someone observing these fragmented memories questioned the reality of what they were seeing. The pain of these remembered moments became almost unbearable for the observer. A blood-red moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the shadowed town visible through a dusty window. On the desk, illuminated by a flickering oil lamp, lay an open journal filled with cryptic sketches and handwritten notes, a revolver resting ominously beside it, disoriented and confused. The man in the white shirt found himself in a dimly lit room, a gun and scattered papers on the desk. Before him, his mind grappling with the unsettling question of his location, a young man stared at his reflection, a flicker of disbelief and dawning understanding in his eyes as he wondered if he'd been transported to another world. His fingers brushed against his temple, a flicker of surprise crossing his face as he realized the wound was healing at an unnatural speed. Klein Moretti, a fresh history graduate from Koei University, stood silhouetted with his family. His father, a Royal Army sergeant, had made the ultimate sacrifice in a distant colonial conflict. Thanks to his father's pension, Klein's path to higher education had been secured, culminating in his graduation and a visit to somber graves. The weight of grief pressed down on Klein, the memory of his mother, a devout follower of the Evernight goddess, fading alongside the joy of his university acceptance. He lived in a cramped bedroom apartment, the shadowy figures of his older brother and younger sister, a stark reminder of the responsibilities that now rested solely on his brother's shoulders. Their survival depended entirely on his older brother's meager income as a clerk at an import-export company. A history graduate, skilled in the ancient tongue of Fusic and the ritualistic language of Hermes, was introduced with an image of arcane text and tools, hinting at her esoteric knowledge. A somber truth, "Everyone dies, including me," materialized in golden letters, hovering above an open tome filled with ancient runes. A young man, his face etched with a mixture of awe and bewilderment, touched his healing wound, the injury vanishing at an unnatural speed. His companion, observing the swift recovery, wondered aloud if this miraculous healing was a consequence of their transmigration. Haunted by a recent event, the man worried about the bloodstains and the potential reaction of a certain Melissa. He meticulously cleaned his study, attempting to erase any trace of the night's disturbing activities. A chilling question hung in the air as a blood-stained bullet was held delicately between two fingers, the implications of a temple shot with a revolver heavy with unspoken menace. A man in a white shirt meticulously examined something small in his hands. Amidst a cluttered desk scattered with papers and books, a revolver subtly placed within the chaos, while the lingering question of suicide or staged suicide hung heavy in the air. The mystery deepened with the chilling question of the gun's origin. A revolver lay ominously on a worn surface next to scattered bullets, raising the unsettling question of its origin. A dismissive thought followed, wondering what trouble a seemingly ordinary history graduate could possibly find themselves entangled in. Bewildered, he pondered the inexplicably small bloodstain left by his suicide attempt, questioning if he'd somehow transmigrated, carrying a mysterious healing ability. He stared at the gun in his hand, turning it over and over, then running a hand through his hair in frustration. He observed his surroundings, finding the new time period strangely familiar and uneventful. He lamented his sudden and inexplicable transmigration, questioning his misfortune, his face etched with a strange mix of hope and apprehension. The dark-haired man gestured as if recalling a recent, almost forgotten ritual performed before a meal. A sudden surge of powerful emotion, a desperate yearning for a return to something lost, consumed him. Resigned to his current predicament, he vowed to try a luck-enhancing ritual again. Desperation clinging to his words, he paused at a doorway, a worried frown etched on his face, as the looming deadline for his Tingen University History Department interview weighed heavily on his mind. Fragmented memories, like shards of glass, swirled within their mind. Anxiety gnawed at them. Their brother's meager earnings barely sustained them, and the looming interview held the key to their survival. The previous inhabitant of this body, Klein, had driven himself relentlessly, burning the candle at both ends just to compete with the privileged students and their superior education. Alerted by a sound, a man in a dimly lit study, holding a gun, realized with a jolt of alarm that Melissa was awake. Cursing under his breath, he quickly and forcefully stashed the weapon away in a drawer. A young woman peeked around a doorway, a curious "what happened?" escaping her lips. A wave of warmth washed over her as she observed someone, a tender smile, gracing her face as she wondered if this is what it felt like to have a younger sister. A young man with tousled dark hair held his father's watch, a wistful smile playing on his lips as he realized it was broken yet again. Melissa, seemingly engrossed in a small object in her hands, was oblivious to the unsilenced shot that took Klein's life just a wall away. A chilling question lingered. Was she simply in a deep sleep, or was there something more sinister? Something unnatural, shrouding Klein's suicide. With a quiet all right and a sole smile, the young woman in the dark dress presented a wristwatch, her expression a mix of resignation and affection. A concerned observer, likely her brother judging by the chibi portrait and frantic internal monologue, fretted over her seemingly tolerant attitude. Klein announced his departure. Melissa, near a window, bid him a safe journey. A woman, likely a wife or housekeeper, reminded a man sitting at a table to take out the remaining bread and pick up fresh loaves, meat, and peas from the market later. She promised to make him lamb stew with peas for his upcoming interview. He curtly confirmed he understood. A woman reminded a man sitting at a table to buy only 8 pounds of bread, lamb, and peas, emphasizing the hot weather and the risk of spoilage. He impatiently reassured her. From the doorway, a woman reminded Klein not to overbuy lamb and peas as Benson might be away until Sunday, adding a further caution about limiting bread to 8 pounds. Klein, seated with his back to her at a desk, conceded with a slightly exasperated all right. A young woman in a long skirt ascended a creaking staircase, a small bag clutched in her hand, leaving a figure in a white shirt watching her from below. He silently apologized, his heart aching for the comfort of home. He mused on her youth and the surprising sense of responsibility she carried, caring for him with a maternal tenderness. A lone figure in a trench coat and fedora strolled through the bustling street market of a lower-class district, taking in the sights and smells of fresh produce, roasted meats, and steaming eel soup. A customer, holding a bread basket, requested 8 pounds of rye bread from Mrs. Celine in a bustling bakery. The baker, cheerfully agreeing, inquired about a certain Benson's whereabouts. Someone, presumably a family member, praised the customer's recent graduation from Hoi University's history program, hinting at future financial success. They then expressed concern over the graduate's cramped living arrangements, suggesting an upgrade to a place with, at the very least, a private washroom. A kindly compliment about Mrs. Celine's youthful appearance and vibrant energy brightened her day. The baker, a woman with a kind face and a white apron, declared the price as 9 pence, adding a cryptic comment about eternal youth. The customer, seen from behind in a dark coat, expressed surprise, recalling a much lower price just days and weeks before. A baker, amidst loaves of bread, seemed to be explaining something, suggesting gratitude for the repeal of the corn laws and acknowledging the protesters' role. A narrative box explained the corn laws as measures designed to protect domestic crop prices by limiting imports. A puzzled voice then questioned why anyone would protest against such seemingly beneficial laws. Amidst the bustling marketplace, a young man in a fedora, intrigued by the vibrant circus performers and the cheerful melody filling the air, contemplated the upcoming circus performance. His thoughts drifted to Melissa, picturing her delight, and he wondered about the ticket price. A thoughtful expression gracing his features, the cloaked fortune teller, face painted with mystical markings, held up a tarot card, a single eye staring out from its surface, and offered a reading to her customer. A cloaked fortune teller, face painted with mystic markings, offered a reading, holding up a tarot card in the candlelight. The fedora-clad gentleman politely declined her offer with a small wave of his hand, a slight smile playing on his lips. A cloaked figure, their face obscured by a deep hood, confidently presented tarot cards to a man in a fedora, assuring him of the accuracy of their readings. The man, startled, mentally exclaimed tarot, the word echoing his surprise. He realized, with a jolt, that the fortune teller's pronunciation of tarot was eerily familiar, reminiscent of the tarot readings from his own world, Earth. A silhouetted figure on horseback, reminiscent of a historical monument, is introduced as Emperor Roselle, a pivotal figure who revolutionized the world with inventions like the steam engine and improved sailing ships. The Emperor, a forward-thinking leader, is depicted as having overturned the old Intis Republic, founding a new era. His reign also saw the rise of explorations, with fleets venturing into turbulent seas to discover new passages to the southern continent, marking the beginning of colonialism. A young man, dressed in a fedora and period attire, contemplates Roselle's remarkable accomplishments, intrigued by the possibility that the emperor might have also been a transmigrator, someone who crossed from another world. A man in a fedora, intrigued, considered trying something new, but only if the price was right. The mysterious cloaked figure with striking face paint, informed him he was her first customer of the day, granting him a surprising free offer. A cloaked figure challenged a fedora-clad man, scoffing at the notion of something being free, and declaring that the most valuable things are often priceless. The man, seemingly perplexed, adjusted his hat, while the cloaked figure dared him to prove his divining skills by revealing a hidden truth. Their status as a transmigrator. A polite invitation to sit was offered. Amidst a charged atmosphere, a spread of mystical tarot cards lay on a rich, dark surface, their cryptic images hinting at hidden knowledge. The observer, captivated by the cards, pondered the intriguing possibility of Roselle being a predecessor. A whisper of doubt and fascination in their thoughts. In a dimly lit room, a cloaked fortune teller, face painted with mystical markings, instructed her client to shuffle and cut the tarot deck. The client, a man with dark hair, turned his head slightly, contemplating whether to perform the ritual himself. With a knowing smirk, the fortune teller, draped in a deep crimson hood, held out a fan of intricately designed cards, implying that only the seeker could truly decipher their destiny, and she was merely a guide. A young man, seemingly pensive, wondered aloud if an interpretation would be an added cost. A smug chibi version of the man declared this trickery was nothing new to a seasoned keyboard folklorist like himself. A mysterious figure cloaked in red with striking face paint offered a simple yet cryptic assurance it was free. Across a dimly lit table, draped in rich velvet, a cloaked figure sat with clasped hands, her face obscured by the shadows of her hood. As the other person, their back to the viewer, laid down a card. A single flickering candle illuminating the scene just enough to reveal a dark crystal orb nestled beside the figure's intertwined fingers. A hushed declaration of completion hung in the air, confirming a ritualistic act. The cloaked figure, her face painted with an enigmatic design, suddenly remembered a crucial question. What did the other person wish to see in their divination? His gaze steady, the young man with dark hair requested a glimpse into everything, past, present, and future. The cloaked figure instructed the man to shuffle again, emphasizing the need for focus to draw meaningful cards. He, seemingly exasperated, wondered aloud if she was deliberately withholding information because of his insistence. In a dimly lit room, a young man in a suit carefully examined a deck of cards, a dark crystal orb resting nearby. He glanced up at the cloaked figure across the table, seeking reassurance. With a nod from the hooded individual, the man received the confirmation he sought. A sense of relief washing over his face, a hand, adorned with a simple ring, hovered over 3 ornate cards laid out on a deep crimson surface. The middle card was indicated as a representation of the present moment. The final card, lying face down, was declared to hold the secrets of the future. The cloaked figure, her face painted with curious markings, gestured with an open hand, offering her companion a choice. His response was a low murmur, the present. With a mysterious glint in her eyes, the hooded figure laid down a card. The fate it foretold hanging heavy in the dimly lit room, a weathered tarot card, depicting a hooded figure beneath a serene sun, drifted through a hazy, ominous atmosphere, ominously labeled the Fool. A lone figure, clad in a traveler's cloak, stood at the precipice of a cliff. A small dog at his heels, the image framed by the aged, mystical lines of a tarot card. The Fool, intrigued, an unknown voice pondered the meaning of the card, its symbolism of new beginnings and boundless possibilities hanging heavy in the air. In a dimly lit room, a veiled figure with dramatic makeup gestured sharply, seemingly confronting a man in a suit who stood by a table with cards and a candle. A sudden outburst shattered the tense atmosphere, accusing the man of impersonation yet again. With a dramatic flourish of the curtains, the cloaked woman declared her role as the diviner for all who sought her mystical guidance. Cloaked figure warned someone not to be caught again, their tone hinting at a past transgression. The elaborately dressed fortune teller, brushing off her companion's apprehension, insisted her divinations were surprisingly accurate. She then turned her gaze to a client, offering a reading of the tarot cards laid out on the table. He inquired cautiously if the service was free, his expression a mix of hope and skepticism. The fortune teller's response was a simple, blunt no, her face obscured by shadows and an unsettling double image. Immediately losing interest, he decided to abandon the whole affair, overlooking a bleak cityscape. A melancholic thought drifted through the air, a lament for Benson and his unfortunate lack of funds. Clutching a bag of staple foods, the man entered his sparsely furnished room, a determined glint in his eyes as he anticipated performing a luck-enhancing ritual. From a bird's eye view, a lone figure sat amidst a sparsely furnished room, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the worn wooden floor, illuminating a simple table set for tea and a desk cluttered with papers and books. Worn boots paused on the weathered wooden planks. A silent prayer, or perhaps a curse, ascended to the immortal Lord of heaven and earth. A pair of worn boots stood poised on a wooden platform, hinting at a weighty presence. As if summoned by the figure's silent command, a chorus of blessings arose, invoking the Sky Lord of heaven and earth. The ethereal pronouncements continued, seeking favor from the exalted Thirch of heaven and earth. Finally, the incantations culminated in a plea for grace from the celestial worthy, adding a mystical aura to the scene. Lost in thought, the dark-haired man in the loose-fitting suit pondered the potential effects of some unknown action. A flicker of unease crossed his features as he wondered if unforeseen circumstances might arise. A strange, unsettling sound pierced the silence, causing someone to wonder aloud what it could be. Faint, reddish symbols, almost like whispers in the darkness, seemed to swirl and multiply, adding to the eerie atmosphere. A chilling chorus of tormented chanting echoed through the darkness, sounding like scriptures recited in utter agony. Ghastly, red-eyed skulls, wreathed in shadows, screamed in unison, their voices merging into a horrifying cacophony. Surrounded by screaming, shadowy figures with glowing red eyes, a sense of dread washed over them, desperate to understand the chilling whispers carried on the wind. A sharp, agonizing pain shot through the man's head, causing him to cry out and clutch his temples, his face contorted in a grimace. He groaned, overwhelmed by the throbbing sensation, muttering about the unbearable pain. He squeezed his eyes shut, a soft groan escaping his lips as he fought against an unknown force, desperately trying to resist but unable to open them. The dark-haired man in the suit, his hand pressed to his temple, grimly mused that he would survive as long as he avoided reckless actions. A sudden, unsettling quiet descended. A young man, dressed in a brown suit and a loosely knotted tie, stared into an ominous, swirling darkness punctuated by crimson sparks. A whisper of this escaping his lips, confusion etched on his face. He wondered aloud what sort of predicament he'd found himself in. Lost in an endless gray fog, he questioned his location, his voice laced with growing unease. Lost in a swirling fog punctuated by ominous crimson stars, a lone figure wondered how to escape this strange, ethereal realm. A figure, clad in what appeared to be a dark suit, pointed a finger towards a small, crimson light against a smoky backdrop, wondering about the nature of the crimson stars. The dark-haired man in the suit, his tie askew, reached out, a crimson star swirling and pulsing in his hand. He murmured in awe, seemingly recognizing the ominous glow as another crimson star appeared. Surrounded by a crimson glow, the young man in the dark suit stared, his expression a mixture of awe and apprehension, as the stars above seemed to pulsate with an imminent, explosive energy. He wondered, a tremor of uncertainty in his thoughts, what extraordinary event was about to unfold. Suspended in a swirling vortex of crimson and ethereal white energies, the dark-haired man in the brown trench coat felt a chilling emptiness creep into his mind. A grand, Gothic-styled church stood proudly amidst the sprawling metropolis of Backland, capital of the Kingdom of Lone. Within the Empress burrowed in a lavish, green-hued room. A young woman in a long, elegant gown gazed into a silver hand mirror, a silent plea for awakening echoing in the opulent space as her loyal golden retriever rested nearby. A powerful command echoed, invoking the Hall family name, urging a mysterious presence to awaken. Doubt clouded the young woman's emerald eyes as she grappled with the shocking realization her father's stories about the mirror, a supposed mystical treasure of the Black Emperor, might have been a lie. Gazing into an ornate mirror, a woman with intricately braided hair noticed a subtle change in her reflection, a flicker of something unfamiliar that drew a soft "oh" from her lips. Suddenly, a swirling vortex of crimson energy erupted, consuming the space around her. On the Sonyao Sea, a lone ship battled ferocious waves, its dark sails billowing against the stormy gray sky. Aboard a ship tossed by stormy seas, a dark-haired man, his coat billowing in the wind, clutched a glowing vial. A look of grim determination etched on his face, a dark glass bottle clutched in unseen hands, pulsed with an otherworldly light, a spectral serpent within thrashing against its confines as cracks spider-webbed across the glass. The dark-haired man, clad in a laced shirt and coat, stared intently at a glowing red vial clutched in his hand, a flicker of surprise or perhaps alarm crossing his features as he muttered a confused "huh." A surge of crimson energy pulsed ominously, accompanied by a gasp of either pain or surprise. With a soft, troubled sigh, the woman with silvery hair and emerald eyes stared into the swirling mist, a hint of fear touching her delicate features. Amidst a swirling mist, a woman with rose-gold hair adorned with white flowers watched a shadowy figure emerge from the gloom, shrouded in swirling mist and shadows. A lone figure in a dark, flowing coat stood with his back to the viewer, his gaze fixed on a woman in a long gown who seemed to be fading into the ethereal fog. His startled blue eyes darted around as he realized he'd just been pulled in by a crimson light. He muttered a disoriented over there, his gaze fixed on a distant point, a mixture of fear and fascination in his expression. A woman with golden hair and a jeweled necklace. Her expression taut with alarm, spotted a shadowy figure lurking in the distance. Her voice, barely a whisper, betrayed her fear as she addressed the newcomer as Your Excellency. A shadowy figure, shrouded in darkness and smoke, emerged under a blood-red moon. Disoriented, the dark-haired man demanded to know his location, his voice laced with unease. A crimson energy crackled between him and two figures shrouded in misty darkness, one appearing ethereal in pale garments, the other radiating a dark, imposing presence who challenged the newcomer's identity. A dark-haired man with intense eyes, shrouded in shadows, was questioned about his intentions. A woman with silvery hair, adorned in a green dress, looked around with wide, frightened eyes, wondering where she was. Disoriented and surrounded by an eerie fog, a man in a dark suit, his face obscured by shadows, demanded answers about his identity, his companions, and the strange location he found himself in. The younger man, his brown jacket and loosely tied cravat, a stark contrast to the other's attire, echoed the sentiment with a look of shared confusion and apprehension. The protagonist realized they were in a mirror match of bewilderment, their expressions reflecting the same puzzled looks they received, weighing their options, feigning equal cluelessness or embracing an enigmatic aura to steer the situation. They decided to make a move. With a subtle shift in demeanor, the attempt to take control began. With a glimmer of hope in her emerald eyes, the young woman in the elegant green dress, her blonde curls adorned with white roses and pearls, inquired if the ordeal had ended and if they might be permitted to return. The dark-haired man, his gaze intense, mused that he had a question burning on his tongue. A mysterious figure, draped in dark, elaborate garments, sat amidst a swirling mist, her voice and demeanor hinting at a privileged upbringing, driven by a desperate need for clarity. The young man in the brown coat vowed to become stronger, hoping to pierce the veil of the mysterious gray fog and finally understand the secrets it held, specifically the identities of the elusive girl and the enigmatic man within. A figure declared their mastery over the spectral visitors before them. Two ethereal forms, a man and a woman, shimmered in a swirling crimson mist. The narrator revealed these figures to be projections, tinged with crimson, emanating from the crimson stars. Though intangible, the narrator asserted their control over these spectral projections. A dark-haired figure, seen from behind, manipulates a crimson thread of energy, seemingly tethered to a shadowy form below. It's revealed that severing this connection will banish the projections and send them back. A close-up reveals the manipulator's face, a subtle smirk playing on his lips as he prepares to act. A shadowy figure hovered above, offering the woman in the elegant green dress a swift return, should she formally request it. Amidst a swirling nebula of dark cosmic dust and crimson glimmers, the young woman in the elaborate green gown gasped, a spark of wonder in her eyes, realizing she had stumbled upon the mystical experience she'd long awaited. A woman with emerald earrings and blonde curls, her expression a mix of awe and excitement, breathed that this experience was truly wonderful, a moment she'd always longed for. Continuing with an eager tone, she confessed a love for mysteries and the supernatural. Then, cutting herself off mid-sentence, she began to clarify her true meaning. The young woman, adorned in a delicate green gown and white gloves, clasped her hands together, a wistful expression in her eyes as she sought the path to become a Beyonder. Lost in thought, the elegantly dressed man pondered the implications of being called Beyonder, a title that seemed to both intrigue and puzzle him. He wrestled with the question of how to respond to such a label, anxious to maintain an air of mystery. Practicality surfaced amid the enigma. What attire and demeanor would best project the persona he now felt compelled to embody? A sharply dressed figure, lost in thought, pondered his attire, questioning if a tailored suit befitted the grand occasion he envisioned. He further mused on the propriety of his stance, wondering if responding, while standing, was beneath someone of his perceived stature. Finally, he envisioned himself in a palace, seated at a long table, suggesting a desire for a more regal setting. A deafening boom echoed as colossal structures crumbled and fell. Observed by a watchful presence from a vantage point, a gasp escaped the noble woman's lips as a shadowy figure emerged from the gloom of the crumbling fortress, his presence sending a chill down her spine. A colossal structure loomed, its aged and weathered architecture suggesting a forgotten era or a catastrophic event. A crimson eclipse sun hung ominously over a desolate, fog-shrouded temple, its eerie glow highlighting a long, raised platform. Zooming in, a faint red light pulsed within a shadowed structure on the platform, hinting at a hidden presence or a sinister device. The blonde woman, her gloved hand resting on a stone surface, observed something in the misty gloom, a flicker of intrigue in her eyes as she murmured, "How fascinating." A lone figure stood on a desolate, misty walkway lined with ominous pillars to shadowy figures barely visible in the distance. He realized with a thrill that this strange place shifted and changed according to his thoughts. In a dimly lit room, a figure with dark, tousled hair was questioned about their origins. A mysterious, veiled figure barely visible in the background. The air thickened with intrigue as the dark-haired figure learned that the path to becoming a Beyonder required choosing a deity, the Evernight goddess, the Lord of Storms, or the god of steam and machinery. A somber narration revealed that while most people never encounter a Beyonder, certain clergymen share a different fate. The dark-haired man, possibly one such clergyman, stared into the unknown with a grave expression, a hint of apprehension in his eyes. A hushed voice revealed the continued, though diminished, presence of Beyonders within the institutions of power. The speaker continued, explaining that these few remaining warriors still battled the lurking shadows, their ranks tragically thinned since the Iron Age. Down a long, dimly lit corridor, two figures stood apart, separated by shadows and secrets, with a look of quiet intensity. The blonde-haired woman confessed she knew far more than the man realized, hinting at shadowy organizations like the Nighthawks, the mandated Punishers, and the machinery hive mind, but her primary concern was preserving her own liberty. The dark-haired man, his face etched with a somber expression, questioned the possibility of achieving a certain elevated status without paying a heavy price. The weight of the word Beyonder hung in the air, echoing the profound question of sacrifice. The unseen speaker offered grim choices: the church, the royals, a handful of nobles, or the shadowy embrace of clandestine organizations. Alone in a dimly lit hall, a woman in a green gown, her hand resting on a dark table, despaired over the lack of better options. The dark-haired man, his expression serious, revealed he possessed two sets of formulas for a Sequence 9 potion. The weight of Sequence 9 hung in the air, a palpable tension surrounding the ominous phrase. One speaker explained that to transcend human limitations and become Beyonders, humanity's only hope rested on potions. A close-up of a man's intense, questioning eyes hinted at disbelief as he echoed, "Rely on potions," and demanded to know what the two sets were. In a dimly lit, mysterious chamber, cloaked figures conversed, one revealing that humanity's ascension to Beyonders depended solely on potent potions. Intrigued, another figure questioned which specific combinations held the key to this transformation. The first speaker then divulged the ancient origins of the potion names, tracing them back to the enigmatic blasphemy slate, a text whose meaning had been veiled by countless translations across ages and languages. A pensive man with dark, wavy hair, his chin resting on a hand, seemed to contemplate something important. His thoughts drifted to a sequence of 9 potions, the first named Sailor, emphasizing that their true value lay not in their names, but in capturing the essence of their properties. A figure, the epitome of a sailor, stood firm on a swaying ship's mast amidst a raging storm, promised the gift of unwavering balance. A hand, now adorned with shimmering, scale-like patterns, reached out from the churning water, hinting at newfound aquatic strength and elusiveness. A revelation of newfound aquatic prowess was unveiled, the ability to move through water with the grace of marine life, holding one's breath for an astonishing 10 minutes. Unaided by any equipment, as a figure plunged into the churning depths, the blonde woman, adorned in emeralds and pearls, listened intently, a flicker of curiosity in her green eyes. Someone off-panel mentioned the Keeper of the Seas, an artifact from the Church of the Lord of Storms, and she responded with intrigue. A dark-haired man with a serious expression confirmed the ancient name, a subtle tension filling the air. Mystical eye, vibrant with color, pulsed with untold power, its gaze seemingly piercing the very fabric of reality as the narrative proclaimed the potion, spectator as the next in the sequence. The potion's promised effect, an exceptionally sharp mind with acute observational abilities, hung heavy in the air, enhancing the eye's already intense presence. A shadowed figure, perhaps a seeker of this potent concoction, appeared dwarfed by the eye's immensity, labeled as the epitome of a spectator, adding an air of intrigue and anticipation. A woman in a long dark dress and had led a small child by the hand, their figures shadowed against a swirling, ethereal backdrop. An unseen speaker compared everyday life to the theater, suggesting that people are constantly judged like actors on a stage. A shadowy figure, resembling a farmer with a pitchfork and bucket, stood silhouetted against the same backdrop, representing the idea that true intentions are often masked behind everyday behaviors and habits. A lone figure, cloaked in shadow and diligently sweeping, seemed to be cleaning up the remnants of a forgotten memory. A disembodied voice echoed, reminding someone that no matter the setting, they were destined to remain an outsider, forever observing life from the sidelines. The dark-haired man with a sharp profile and eyes filled with a quiet intensity absorbed these words, his expression a mix of resignation and defiance, intrigued by a newfound sensation. The blonde woman, adorned with emerald earrings, eagerly inquired about acquiring a spectator potion, wondering what price she'd have to pay for such a unique experience. A dark-haired man with a shadowed gaze, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips, made a chilling request, at least 100 milliliters of ghost shark blood. The young woman in the elegant green gown pondered, her gaze distant, on the logistics of delivering a precious, yet elusive, item. The dark-haired man with a sly glint in his eye offered an address in exchange for the blood, promising to deliver the formula afterward, either by mail or in person. He then gestured towards an unseen presence, suggesting that this mysterious sir served as a silent guarantor of their precarious agreement. In a shadowy, imposing chamber, one figure complimented another on their immense power, subtly hinting at the significance of their presence. With a gesture towards a mysterious, glowing artifact, he confirmed their agreement, emphasizing the weight of their promise made under the silent gaze of their powerful witness. Tense request hung in the air as someone sought the noble's assurance in a shadowed transaction, their gaze fixed on a glowing object. Suddenly, the noble realized with a start they'd forgotten a crucial question, a look of slight panic flashing across their face. With an air of quiet expectation, the blonde woman in the emerald green dress was asked how she wished to be addressed, her striking green eyes holding a hint of mystery. The blue-haired man, his gaze intense and unwavering, was addressed with deference, the unseen speaker inquiring how he preferred to be titled. Shrouded in shadows and swirling smoke, the dark-haired figure lowered their head, a few crimson sparks dancing in the air around them, hinting at a hidden power or a brewing conflict. Tense rhythm filled the air as a finger, belonging to a figure clad in dark attire, tapped impatiently against a hard, textured surface, eyes blazing crimson. A darkly clad figure emerged from the shadows, offering a chilling invitation to address him as the fool.